Have I mentioned that this audience is like the greatest audience? Have I? Well, if I haven't, let me just say it. This audience, this Midwestern Method audience, you are the best. And just as an example, I recently had an interaction with one of the members of this audience named Diego. And Diego, I want to thank you right now for all of everything that you did to put this video, help me to put this video together. Diego wrote to me and he had heard about possible brain damage that people can get from holding the breath. He is practicing Wim Hof Method, and he had heard that there are certain things that happen whenever we hold our breath for too long that could possibly harm our brain. One of which was a certain protein that free divers often find in their brains that causes brain damage. Another thing was, well, if it's not that protein, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but if it's not that protein, what about this holding the breath? Aren't we depriving oxygen to our brains? Can you cause brain damage from holding your breath? Let's answer this question today. Welcome to the Midwest. My name is Jesse. Again, thank you, Diego, for helping me make this video. So Diego wanted to know about, he had heard that free divers often have a protein in their brains that is evidence of brain damage, and free divers often have this kind of brain damage. And so he asked me about it, and I was looking into it, and before I could even respond, he did an enormous amount of research and found an answer for me. So, hey, thank you so much, and this whole audience thanks you, Diego. And what he found was essentially that, yes, there is a protein that is associated with holding your breath when it comes to free diving specifically. And of course, free diving is not just holding your breath, but there's a lot of other things going on. And free divers oftentimes really push themselves to the extremes. They also scientifically, and I'll put a link to the study in the information bar below, they showed that, yes, this protein does occasionally happen in the brains of free divers, but whenever they go back into regular breathing, the protein goes away, and generally there's no problems. Now, there are always those cases where people take it to extremes, but in general, as long as people adhere to basic safety routines, they don't have any problems. So there is no evidence of that kind of brain damage. But this does raise the question, we are holding our breath. For instance, if you're practicing hypoxia training, especially if you're doing Wim Hof Method, or maybe you're doing soma breathing, or maybe you're doing butsuko breathing, or maybe you're doing other forms of pranayama that involve long breath holds. Well, there's times we feel fuzzy in the head. There's times we feel dizzy. Are we causing brain damage? And here's the thing, the human body is this amazing, just beautiful thing. It is a miracle of biology, and there are built-in mechanisms that prevent us from causing brain damage simply by holding our breath. And so let's talk about that. First of all, when we hold our breath for long periods of time, there are changes in our blood pressure, and if we're talking about extreme periods of time, our bodies naturally take blood from extremities, and they make sure that oxygen is going to make it to the brain. Your body knows that this up here is that's the most important thing. So it will shunt, actually, if it gets to extremes, we're talking really extreme here, but it will actually shunt blood from your extremities, from your lips. This is why you get blue lips whenever you hold your breath for super long periods of time. Some people get them, some people don't. But I've seen it a lot whenever I teach hypoxia training and Wim Hof Method breathing. And what that is your body saying, okay, we got to get all the oxygen we can to the brain. And we got to make sure the brain is fed that oxygen, because we know the brain needs oxygen. Now, that is just one of the safety protocols. So there's that. The other one is the one we're probably the most familiar with, and that is the fact that we will pass out eventually. So basically, if you are able to hold your breath long enough so that the oxygen is just incredibly depleted all throughout your body will actually do a reboot. Your body will pass out, okay? And so that is not a harmful thing. Passing out due to holding your breath is harmful if you fall down and hurt yourself, like hit your head or something. That's why we always would practice breath work in a laying down situation or a seated position. We never are in water. If you pass out in the water, you're going to drown. Because what happens is when you pass out, your body just naturally goes back into breathing again. It'll naturally go back into, you can't hold your breath when you're unconscious. Your body just says, nope, sorry, I'm going to have to take over control because you're not letting me breathe, reboot, and then you start breathing like a normal person again. And ta-da, the oxygen levels go back to normal, and that's how that works. But the thing is, the reason why it's really hard to get to that state, right? So that's the second reason. Passing out happens if you hold it long enough, and we're talking long time, you will pass out. But the reason why it's difficult to get to the state where you're passing out due to holding your breath, not impossible, but it's difficult, is because reason number three. Reason number three is primarily the thing that we're all the most familiar with, and that is the urge to breathe. Your body, when you're practicing a breath hold of any kind, will start building up carbon dioxide. It's actually the carbon dioxide, not the lack of air. It's the buildup of carbon dioxide that causes you to feel that need to breathe, that real strong urge that you know so well. If you've ever tried to hold your breath for a long time, you know that urge to breathe. That is caused by the building up of carbon dioxide in your blood. And so, and that's primarily because your mitochondria, so all throughout your body you have cells, everywhere you have cells, and the powerhouse of your cells, those are your mitochondria. Your mitochondria, the mitochondria, they take in, this is just kind of a rough thing, glucose, oxygen, and then they expel ATP, so cellular energy, and then the exhaust is carbon dioxide. And so that just constantly happens. And if your body continues to live, right, which it's doing when you're holding your breath, regardless of you holding your breath, your body continues all these processes. And what happens is you get a buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood, and eventually that tells your brain, hey, you better breathe. We got to let some of this stuff out. We've got too much building up. And so then you feel the urge to breathe, and it's painful if you hold your breath too long. So you've got those three big things that keep you from causing yourself brain damage through breath holds. And even in hypoxic training, whether you're doing any of I don't care what kind you're doing, for instance, Wim Hof Method, Soma breathing, Butsuko, different forms of pranayama, all of those methods, first of all, you're in control. It's not an uncontrolled situation. And you will eventually feel that urge to breathe, and you're going to take that breath. And if you don't, if for some reason you just really rough it out, again, you've got those other two backdrops. Your body will shunt blood to your brain, make sure you get oxygen to the brain. And if worse comes to worse, it's going to click restart, and you're going to pass out and go back into regular breathing. Again, if you pass out, it's especially in this kind of a case, passing out is not going to cause you brain damage. It is specifically there for that purpose, to avoid brain damage. And as long as you're not falling down and hurting yourself, you're fine. That's why we practice in a safe location. So I appreciate, Diego, thank you so much for helping me make this video, not only for the question, but also for doing a lot of the research. So I really do appreciate it. If you're like Diego and you have a question that you pretty much know the answer to, or if you want me to do some research, I will research it. Sometimes people just research it faster than I do. So I really appreciate that. And I will be happy to make that video. People need to know this stuff. So thank you guys. I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question. I hope that alleviates a lot of the fears for people who might be afraid of harming themselves by doing a lot of these very healthy breathing techniques that are out there. You are in no danger of giving yourself brain damage unless you're not following protocol and you're being in an unsafe situation, or you're free diving and you're not doing that safely too. So that's why these protocols exist, and that's why it's good to be safe. So thanks so much for the question. Thanks for the answer, Diego. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to go out there and be nice to people. Oh yeah. Angel.